say the word thug, what's the first thing you think about, viewer? Black people! What? Piccolo, GTA 6, really black people. Starting to sound racist. Tupac, Thugnificent, The Thug Life, Black Ice, and last but not least, Black Fatigue. Alright, enough. Being a thug has nothing to do with being black. Oh yeah? Ask a Chinese store clerk.
Hurry up and buy!
I don't speak Chinese, so I don't know what she said. She spoke English. Broken English, and you forgot to mention black cats. Okay, let's calm down, guys. Are you insinuating because I'm a black cat, I'm a thug? No. I just mean, you know, you people. What do you mean, you people? Okay, I'm sorry. It was just a little joke. I apologize.
Apology accepted.
Good.
Now jump his ass. What? Alright, the term thug and gangster are usually used interchangeably, which means they often mean the same thing when using a sentence. However, the official definition of the two are a little different. Let me explain. A thug is generally a violent or often solitary criminal or bully, whereas a gangster is a member of an organized crime group or gang. So long story short, a thug doesn't have to be in the group, and a thug isn't just some random guy who runs a red light one time, or a black person. You're racist. Being a true thug implies violent, coercive, and criminal activity. A true thug is someone who goes to jail so much they live there, and they're often doing criminal activities like stealing, fighting, killing, and etc. They can't stay out of trouble, and they usually hate police. They also may do these activities because they was raised in very abusive, neglectful, or unstable homes. But more or less, the term thug is a broad term, and the average thug comes in all shapes and sizes. And just like Pokemon, some are thicker than others. Oh yeah. So, with that being said, when it comes to the thick thug waifu, is it wise for the average man to try to fix one? Now this question may sound simple, but it's actually harder to answer than you think. Because physically, there's nothing wrong with the thug waifu. All her problems come from her past, her trauma, her personality, her attitude, and her inability to change. Again, the average thug may be a thug in the first place because of how they were brought up, or their environment, or what they grew up around. And this means, once she's in that thug life, she's in it till death. Or in other words,
he belongs to the streets.
And we all know at the end of that thug life, the thug usually ends up dead, or in jail, forever. So you trying to save her could get you killed too. Now if you were, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, if she's gonna get me killed, why would I want to wife her up, or fix her? Well, that's a damn good point. However, let's look at the best possible option and see if your opinion don't change.
Oh my goodness!
Look at you, looking like plankton. Mouth open, eye wide with a fork and knife out. Looking like you're about to dig into a full course meal. But little do you know, street booty tastes like dirt and leads nowhere but to jail or death. Viewer, if you're gonna learn one thing from this video, you gotta learn this. No matter how good looking, no matter how fine, you cannot save a hoe. You can't save her. She don't want to be saved. Look at Revy. She's happy, killing a bunch of people. She belongs there. But you don't. You don't need those cheeks. You want to live. So wave goodbye, my friend, because the streets have her now, and she ain't ever coming back inside. It's tragic, really. But not when you think about the reality of this waifu. Revy may be the best possible thug waifu you could think of, but reality is often disappointing. And when I say that, I mean that realistically, Revy will likely get you killed. And I'll just use a realistic thug woman as an example. If you never heard this thug woman, you have now. This woman here's name is Griselda Blanco. She was also known as the cocaine godmother. She was a Colombian drug lord and a high-ranking member and pioneer of the Medallion cartel. And she was partially responsible for smuggling cocaine into the United States, earning an estimated $80 million a month at her peak. And she was known to be very ruthless. In fact, the authorities believed she ordered the murders of approximately 2,000 people. And she was a real-life quote-unquote gang leader. But obviously she didn't start off that way. From what I read, she began her life of crime as a pickpocket at a young age, later progressing to orchestrating murders, kidnapping, and drug trafficking. So she literally went from picking pockets to dropping bodies. But surprise, surprise, apparently the godmother couldn't live without a man because she had not one, not two, but 3 husbands in her lifetime. And she had 4 children in total. And apparently in her youth, she looked pretty good from what I can tell. So she not only looks decent, she's also rich. So you as her man, theoretically, should literally have to worry about nothing. Absolutely nothing. Except for the police taking all your money and shutting down your business, catching you all, put you in jail and taking away your kids, other rival gangs trying to end you or your son's life. And don't forget this, if she's the breadwinner, you can best believe 9 times out of 10 she's gonna abuse that title. She's likely to cheat, likely to leave you. And just because your wife has money doesn't mean you too have money. At least if we're talking about a toxic relationship, which is likely what this was, because from what I read, her and each of her husbands had disputes, usually about money, and this led to Blanco killing each of them. And she either had them killed, or apparently for one at least, she did it herself. But karma is a bad bitch, because eventually at the age 69, she was gunned down by a motorcycle riding assassin. Now what can we take from this? Realistically, no matter how bad the thug waifu is, she ain't worth it. She will get you killed or kill you herself. The thug waifu is a trauma-filled, aggressive, non-accountability taking piece of crap that should have been left outside to die by itself. This woman had kids with these men and killed them all. 3 men, viewers. 3 men. And she's rich. What she gotta be angry about? The police? Whose fault is it that the police are on their tail in the first place? And you making $80 million a month. I would wait 3 months and then retire forever. Oh, but wait. She can't do that because you can't just walk out of the thug life. Oh no. If she tries to do that, her own men may see that as a betrayal and may try to take her out. So she literally had to keep playing the game till death. Realistically, you'd be a fool to deal with a woman like this. The thug waifu has too many cons realistically, and no woman is worth her life. But can the same thing be said for fictional thug waifus? Let's find out. Alright, the first one I have on my list for the fictional thug waifus is Michiko from the anime Michiko and Hatchin. This type of woman who looks like she tastes like chocolate. True, but she's not just described as black. Oh no. Michiko's race specifically is Afro-Brazilian. She's 30 years old, and get this, when I was researching her, I looked up her occupation, and the site literally said her occupation was prisoner. The dark-skinned anime girl's home would be jail, wouldn't it? Tragic. But now, apparently her being in prison in the beginning of her story was greatly deserved, because from what I read, Michiko was in jail for armed robbery, theft, and assault. Michiko is very beautiful, but she will get violent with you, and she has a lot of lip and attitude. And from what I read, one of her worst personality traits is that she's childish. And this may be because she wasn't raised right. When she was a wee little baby kid, she was raised in the orphanage, alongside another chocolate waifu, which is her rival in this series, Atsuko Jackson, the cop. Now these two apparently stole a lot when they were kids, but the problem here is, when Atsuko Jackson grew up, she became a cop. Michiko never stopped stealing. She was about that life, which is just another one of her cons. She always seems to be in trouble. But of course, she eventually got put in jail, only to break out to find her lover's daughter, Hannah, also known in the story as Hatchin. Now let me back up for a second. The only reason she broke out of jail, or at least her main reason to break out of jail, was to find her lover, and his name was Hiroshi. Now apparently sometime in her story, she found out that Hatchin, aka Hannah, was the daughter of Hiroshi and another woman, but the other woman isn't in the picture, and Hiroshi at the time by most was thought to be dead, but Michiko for some reason wanted to believe he was alive and wanted to search for the man. This stubbornness right here is her biggest con, at least for me. If you never watched this series, you don't know. Michiko for the whole story is obsessed with this guy, this unknown guy that we haven't seen yet in the story, and for most of the anime, you don't see him at all. But in episode 22, they find him. But as soon as they find him, Michiko has the realization that Hiroshi isn't the guy she hoped for. He's not a decent man, he's a player, he faked his death, left his kid in a crummy orphanage, and was off messing with other women. And I don't know why she did this next part, because it pissed me off. She left Hatchin with this scumbag, and turned herself back into prison. And after Michiko was back in prison, and Hatchin was with Hiroshi, Hiroshi eventually left her again. Which shouldn't be surprising, because he's shown that he doesn't care about either one of these two. This is one of the stupidest things she's done in the whole show, and it pissed me off so badly. But more or less, Hatchin eventually grows up and had a kid with an unnamed man, who leaves her 3 months into the pregnancy.
You let him hit it raw, you didn't have second thoughts. Now you a single mom, now you a single mom.
Apparently she learned nothing from her stepmom. But now at the end of this story, Hatchin does eventually meet up with Michiko again once she gets out of prison. So happy ending, or is it? One of Michiko's biggest cons is that she's a mess. Through the whole series, she ain't have no job, and her only hobbies are smoking, motorbike riding, spending time with Hatchin, and that's it. This woman doesn't really have a life, she has problems, and Hatchin just gave her a new one in the form of a baby. Now another pro besides her beauty is, she is a good fighter. She's also described as having a heart of gold, and she's a free spirit, but she's a childish free spirit who is prone to throwing a fit when things don't go her way. Now personally, obviously I think she's a good person, but I also think she's not a very good example for Hatchin. And as far as someone like the average man trying to come in and fix up her life, I would say, no. This is the type of woman you smash with a condom, and you make sure to destroy the condom once you're done. You don't want to have any major connections with a woman like this, because she's gonna get some money out of you, one way or another. So honestly, I think Hiroshi had a good idea. Now he was wrong for abandoning his daughter, but Michiko, yeah, I think he was smart to hit and run. Now you can try to fix a woman like this, but you're gonna suffer for it. Now, moving on, next one up, we have to talk about Faye Valentine from the anime Cowboy Bebop. Now one thing you may not know about Faye is that she is physically 22 to 23 years old, but chronologically, she is 77 years old. And this is because in her past, in the year 2014 in the anime, at age 20, Faye was injured in an accident on a spacecraft, and her injuries were so serious at the time they couldn't be healed. So to save her life, she was chronologically frozen until a cure could be found for her condition. And apparently in the year 2068, she was revived and cured. But she was also scammed and left with a lot of debt that she couldn't afford. Oh, and I forgot to mention, her parents also died in that accident. So Faye Valentine is officially alone, with a lot of debt in the future. Tragic. And apparently, unfortunately for her, OnlyFans doesn't exist in this timeline. So Faye instead decides to go on the run and live her life committing grand theft, small scams, and even stealing goods. Faye would use her obvious sex appeal to seduce men to further her own goals, and her only real goal was money. Now, while I was researching Faye, I found out something about her that was a huge con that I didn't expect. Even though she likes seducing men to achieve her goals, she hates feeling desired and is rarely seen romantically interested in someone. And I also forgot to mention that she has no memory of her past, which isn't a con, but it does somewhat explain why she chose the on-the-run lifestyle. She's just simply using what she currently knows to survive, and that's gambling, scamming, stealing, and simply just being a con artist, which are all cons, by the way. You ever try to talk to a scammer over the phone? Yeah, I know, it's impossible. They don't care about you. All they care about is what's in your pockets. Now, before I learned more about her, I would have said that Faye was like a gold digger. But for her, it's not that simple. Because if she doesn't pay all her debts, she will get chased by bounty hunters, and then likely in prison. So her debt is the only thing keeping her in this lifestyle. Now, Faye Valentine is bad, but I honestly think the only way you're fixing this chick is if you're able to pay off all her debt. And that may be impossible for the average man to do because, well, this is her debt amount at the beginning of her story. Damn, yeah, she might want to start OnlyFans or stripping because her debt's only increasing because of her fraudulent behavior. She gambles some of the money she makes and loses some time, which makes her have more debt, and the only real job she currently has in the anime is a bounty hunter. But she's reluctant to do that because it's a low-paying job, at least in her eyes, and she sees it as beneath her, which is really funny because when you're broke, no job should be beneath you. And she prefers fast money, so she prefers gambling and scams, which is stupid because those only work if she's successful at it. And she also doesn't want to do bounty hunting with Spike and the others because of her trust issues, which is just another con for her. This woman trusts no one and often leaves the crew, mostly because she's frightened by her affection for her companions. But like a hungry dog, she always comes back. I also read somewhere that she does this for attention. She loves attention, but doesn't want to be desired or touched.
Women.
Now, another part of her amazing personality is that she's arrogant and lazy, and she also consumes an excessive amount of alcohol and cigarettes, plus cigars, and she's known for forcing work on others. Bruh, Faye Valentine is definitely one of those women who have pretty privilege, because if she wasn't pretty, no one would put up with her shit. And she may have good moments where she seems to care about her companions, but that doesn't make up for the manipulation, the laziness, the gambling, the debt, and literally more or less all her baggage. Honestly, if I lived in this universe, I would turn her in for her bounty money and move on. A pretty face is nice to look at, but it honestly really isn't worth a dime, especially when it comes with a pack of debt. Moving on! The next one up is the main reason I made this video in the first place. Rebecca Lee, also known as Revy, is a top 10 waifu for many people, and that's mostly because she's a hot woman with guns, and she's basically a tomboy, which are both really good things and pros. But is that enough to make her wise to fix? I'm gonna be very honest with you, viewer. No. Now I know you're asking, why is this? It's because out of all the women on this list, Revy is the most emotionally unstable, most skilled, and most dangerous of this group, and the most likely on this group to kill you. And I know, I get it, she's hot. But this is a hot 5'5" woman who's in her mid to late 20s who walks around dual wielding 2 twin Beretta 92F sword cutlass pistols. And she got those things in 2 quick draw holsters. Plus, according to her profile, she can dodge bullets, and she's capable of maneuvering herself around crowds in a shootout like a superhuman. And she also has diving skills and hand-to-hand combat skills. Now, her physical abilities are pros because they're badass, but they all turn to cons when she loses her shit. If you haven't realized yet, Revy really isn't a good person at all. She's not a hero or anti-hero, she's more or less very close to being a villain. Now, some of you who may not have seen the series are probably saying, how? What could she have done to be considered a villain? Well, for starters, when new members like Rock join the Lagoon Company, according to the big bald black guy Dutch, she gets what he calls Whitman fever. And this Whitman fever happens when Revy's trust issues are triggered. And it can also happen when her way of life is being threatened. Now specifically, she goes into an uncontrolled, hyper-aggressive berserk mode. And in this mode, her profile states that she will kill anyone. And I mean anyone. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, Revy wouldn't kill just anyone. She has some good in her. I'm here to tell you, you're wrong. And this scene right here proves it.
Wait, please don't shoot. All the sailors here are hired outsiders. We're not with these guys.
Unaffiliated and non-resistant means nothing to me.
Yeah, so that instant guy's dead. People really forget that this chick has shot into crowds of people. Plus, she's literally shot at Rock multiple times. Rock is more or less a self-insert character, and she once was going to shoot this guy in the head over an argument in public. Now, what the argument was about is unimportant. But what is important is that when they were about to argue, Or more or less when Rock says something she didn't like. Revy said this.
I'm warning you.
Rock did not heed this warning. Bro must have been having a bad day because he was like, bet.
In that case, I'll say it again. I didn't make any mistake.
He made one mistake. He forgot she's a crazy bitch with 2 guns.
Watch closely. You're about to experience a nigga moment.
She was gonna shoot this dude in his head in public. And this isn't a bluff. She's gonna attempt to do it. And Rock's brave but stupid ass the whole time is just gonna be like,
what you gonna do? What you gonna do?
if he did not move the gun himself in this moment, he would have died. Honestly, I feel like many of you who like Revy couldn't handle her at all. One of Revy's character traits is that she's merciless, sadistic, and is capable of killing anyone, even unarmed civilians. And it is shown throughout the series that Revy subconsciously uses violence as a dysfunctional and destructive coping mechanism, as well as an outlet for her deeply repressed emotional and psychological issues. She's also described as loud, rude, sarcastic, deadly, competitive, short-tempered, cynical, and aggressive. And to make things worse, she also has an obsession towards power over herself and others. And she basically sees money as that power. She's also a heavy smoker and drinker, and she has very little formal education. Or in other words, she dropped out of middle school, so she is not very bright. And she doesn't seem to have much of a sex life due to her trauma as a child. Now, you may be asking yourself, what exactly happened to her as a child that made her like this? Well, her mom was never in her life, but she did have a father who was a drunk and a deadbeat. No! He would occasionally abuse her and call her a and hit her in the face with an alcohol ball. And besides her dad, Revy also had trouble with NYPD. Specifically, one time by a corrupted officer. She was beaten and taken advantage of, if you know what I mean. And this event, plus her lifestyle, plus her father, kind of led her to snap in this moment. And I say that because after this moment, young Revy somehow got a revolver, went back to her house and put a pillow over her dad's face, and yeah. So it's fair to say, Revy doesn't need a man. She needs Jesus. Buff Jesus. Now, it's not all bad. Revy does have more pros. Another pro is she canonically works out. And in her past, she used to be an S&M dancer, which in other words is a go-go dancer. These are types of performers often hired to provide themed entertainment in clubs or bars, and they sometimes wear stylized costumes like leather bondage gear. But to make this clear, she wasn't a stripper. They don't go that far. This does mean though, however, that she may be able to draw that thing back. And I forgot to mention one more con. Honestly, at this point, she has too many. But this last con is a big one. It's hinted at in the series that she's an escaped felon, specifically from a prison in Buffalo Hill, New York. So this means she likely has warrants on her and police are on her tail. So, now that we got through all that baggage, tell me in the comments which one of these ladies would you fix. Is the poon poon worth the amount of trauma and stress she would bring you? And how long do you think you will last before getting killed by one of these waifus? Tell me in the comments, and you guys have a great day. Bye!